In the last few weeks, we've been getting messages like, hey Vince, what do you think of the new Everest? Truth be told, there have been a lot of delays with the borrow of this vehicle. But now we thought we'd give you two for the time of one. What we have here are two examples of the new generation Ford Everest, both of which in 4x2. This one is a Sport, this one is a Titanium. Now, the Everest is a very important vehicle for Ford, and the reasoning is simple to see because we are a market very much addicted to PPVs, or seven-seater SUVs based on a pickup platform. Of course, these two are based on the platform of the Ranger. Now, Ford isn't really calling the Everest all new. They really can't, because there are a lot of carryover components from the previous generation one, which actually sold very, very well. What they did do was make a lot of improvements to the suspension, to the mechanicals, retaining the engine, but they took a lot of customer feedback to make some really meaningful upgrades inside and out. Now let's show you the differences between the two, starting with the Sport. Now, as you can see from the front, the difference is clear. It's got the nice blue color with black trim all around. There's no chrome right there, apart from the Ford emblem. It does have Everest spelled out on the lip of the hood, or bonnet for you guys in the UK English-speaking world. But one thing that's notable here is the C-clamp for the headlights, which actually look very sharp. If one of you, if you're driving along and then you see that, it's kind of distinctive on the road, which is nice. It's also shared with the F-150 as well as the Ranger. Now, these headlights are LED. These are not the matrix LED like the one in the Titanium 4x4. Now, from this angle, we can see here, yeah, that blue is really nice. But the wheels, these are 20 inches and they are finished in black, which again, very sharp. Gloss black, again, very, very sharp color combination. Sport spelled out there, black details up here, black roof rail, and also the black side step. Now, what's neat about the side step is that they kind of improved it, because if you put your foot there, if you notice, there's a bit more space, so your shoes don't get scuffed up by getting in and out of your Everest. Black grab handles. Yeah, that's really it for talking about the side of this. Oh, it does have that turbo thing here, the vent, and you can use it as an index point for a snorkel, but on this side. Now, onto the Titanium, as you can see, chrome. That's actually what they're going for with this model, a bit more premium. That's the styling cue that Ford is going for. Has a bit of silver trim down there, matte silver, which is kind of odd because normally when a lot of metal workers use titanium on whatever device they're making or item they're making, it's usually in a dark matte gray finish, which is kind of cool. Now, same headlights. These are not the matrix LEDs yet. That's only exclusive for the Titanium 4x4. The big difference here, of course, is the details. Chrome, silver roof rail. The wheels, these are the same design, but it's same size as well, but it's two-tone finish instead of the gloss black. Titanium there, same side step with the silver trim. So yeah, let's check out the back and the cargo area. Now let's show you the differences from the back. Actually, there's really not much because these are pretty much the same. The taillights are actually very striking. Kind of reminds me of some Dodge models over in the US. But one thing I want to note here, this red thing here, that is the position lamp. Your actual taillights are right here. That little strip there, along with the one up there. I noticed that when I was following an Everest on the road, which was kind of strange. Now, what I really like is that both of these come with power tailgates. You can open both with the keys. Now, starting with this one. The space here actually is quite decent for a 3-row SUV. As you can see, two can sit in the back, 3 in the middle, 2 more in the front. But when it comes to space, from here to there, it's about 15 inches. The width is about 44.5 inches. We'll show you the measurements in metric. I like what Ford did here with this ledge because it prevents things from rolling back, especially when you have the other seats folded down. Now, you can actually fold it down just by this one. Very easy, one touch. Now, in this configuration, the length goes up to around 42 inches from the back to the front. But the interesting thing here, though, is actually right here. I like what Ford did here because, for one, they've got this lid which you can kind of prop up. I mean, they actually have these struts to prop it up like that. I'm not even sure why. I haven't really consulted the manual yet. But the tools you can access here You got your scissor jack right here. If you look there, scissor jack, your tools and stuff. They even included the jack points on the diagram here, which is very nice. It makes it very foolproof. The one for the back is actually for the center, for the differential itself. That's where you jack up there. Now, when you look up here, down here, you've got the receptacle for lowering the spare tire. And the spare tire of this one is a full-size one, but it's a 17-inch wheel, like not the same as the actual rims of this one. It's a standard wheel. Also a compartment there, which is very cool. Now, let's lower that. Let's look at the other one. Now, looking at this other one, check it out. We've got all the seats folded down very nicely. In this configuration, the length increases from here to there to 68 inches, which is actually very, very big. You can reconfigure the interior how you like, depending on what you're doing. But overall, in terms of space, I have to say they've really improved it with the Everest. A lot of customers do like the space of 7-seater PPVs, but one thing they really look forward to is the water weighting. Now, if I put my 48-inch ruler right in front, we can show you where the water weighting capability of the Everest is. It's the same for both vehicles. It's 800 millimeters or 80 centimeters, which is right about there. Now, if you notice, that's actually pretty high up in the vehicle. But the intake of this one is right up here at the 110, 109 mark. So there's plenty of leeway to play with when it comes to weighting. Now, let's show you the engine. Neat trick, right? Now, the engines of both of these Everests are exactly the same. These are 2-liter turbo diesel engines. Both are rear-wheel drive and both are fitted with 6-speed automatics, not the 10-speed automatic like the one from the Titanium 4x4. Actually, the strange thing with these engines is that they're both detuned compared to the generation it actually replaced. In the previous one, the power was around 180 and torque was around 420. This one, power is at 170 and torque is 405. So it's actually lower than before, which is kind of strange. But what I do like is that they went with a 6-speed automatic because I like that transmission better than the 10-speed. Yes, Ford is really touting these 10-speed automatics, but to be frank, the 6-speed is perfectly fine. Now, if we look at the engine more closely, we can tell that it is a 4-cylinder and there is quite a bit of space in the engine bay. The reason for that extra space in the engine bay is because Ford made some changes, particularly with the fan. It's no longer attached to the engine like before. And also, they extended the wheelbase moving forward. Before we go on to the interior, I want to talk about the frame and the suspension of the vehicle. Now, like I said earlier, the suspension in the front has been moved a little bit forward. That's to make space for the engine bay. But I want to talk about what's going on underneath. If you look at the suspension, the rear axle in particular, you will see a few upgrades, but the most significant one is really the retention of the Watts link system. Now, if you look at that axle, particularly on the differential housing, you'll see a Z-type pattern. That Z linkage is called a Watts link. It basically tries to minimize the movement of the axle from left to right as you're driving, as you're cornering. It's kind of similar in principle to what you're getting from the panhard bar, which is more common in most pickup trucks in our market, but Ford decided to go for the Watts link. That is actually why the Everest, when you drive it along a mountain road or you're cornering, if you drive it back-to-back with, let's say, a Fortuner Montero Sport and any of those other SUVs, it's going to feel very different. So just be aware of that. Now onto the interior. This one is the Everest Sport, and yes, I actually really do like it. The design of the dashboard I like. It's very logical. It's a bit upright, but then again, this is an SUV, so it's kind of perfect for that purpose. You've got digital screen here. It's a little bit smaller than the titanium 4x4, but still works very nicely. You've got that 10-inch screen here, which is really good. It has wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay, so hence, yeah, this is the Android Auto version. You can control the audio, the climate control here, also here, which is kind of redundant. While you're hooked up to the wireless system here, you can use the wireless charger, which is laid out kind of like that, which again, very nice. As with the Ranger, I pointed this out before, the fit here, yeah, not great, but all well and good. 2 cup holders. The gear selector here, it's not like the e-shifter in other variants abroad. You've got some buttons here for traction, depending on the mode. You can turn off your traction control or the parking sensors right here. Key right here. But what I really like is how well the dashboard is thought out. For one, steering wheel, very nice and thick, got buttons down there. They've got a compartment up here and a compartment down there full of literature if you want to read that. It also has the cup holders on the wings of the dashboard, one right there and one right here, just like in the Ranger, the Wild Track versions, which that one has. USB port down there, USB-C port. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it doesn't feel cluttered, and that's the important thing. But one change I do like is the light control panel by the driver's knee, because it's actually very logical to have it all centralized there. Now let's look at the Everest Titanium 4x2. So now we've hopped into the driver's seat of the Everest Titanium, and the difference is not really that clear. Now we can look at the screen here because it got a little bit bigger compared to the other one. So it's actually 12 inches, 12 point something inches, 12.4 I think. So it's a bit bigger. You can do a lot of the same things, but yes, it does have the better voice command system. But all in all, it's still pretty much the same in terms of functionality. The screen, still the same one, same steering wheel, a lot of the same features all around, same buttons here, electronic parking brake as well, same light control switch, cup holder still there, glove compartment up here, and glove compartment down there with a lot of receipts. So that's not really useful right now. A wireless charger, I've got my wireless Apple CarPlay hooked up there. So really, there's not much of a big difference unless you look up, because when you press this button, you can get a peek at your big sunroof. Although it stops at the first stop, but there's another stop right there to give you the full view from front to back. Pretty nice if you want to park and camp out and look at the stars through your sunroof. And by the way, you can actually open that. Hey, that's pretty nice. Now, let's check out the back seat and see what the difference is. I'll make a bold statement right now. I think the back seat of the Everest is my favorite one in the entire class, because look at the legroom I have. This is my setting. I've got a good deal of legroom. I've got a nice armrest here with 2 cup holders and soft open, which is pretty cool. AC controls down there, USB-C and USB port, plus a 230 volt outlet. And now you've got this sunroof right here, which is very nice. Now, what I did notice in the Everest Sport is that there's a bump right here going all across to the back, which kind of, if you're sitting here in the middle and you're a tall guy, you may end up hitting that. But it's not as big of a deal right now with this one because, well, you've got the sunroof giving you extra headroom if you, well, not really, but there you go. Let's check out the third row. Well, normally I won't sit here in the third row, but just to demonstrate, it's actually not bad once you're seated here. Once you move the front, the middle row to give you more space here, it's actually quite okay. Knee room, I've got about maybe 3 inches right there. So it's all well and good. You do have cup holders on either side. There's a 12 volt outlet on the left side, so you can charge your devices here. You got your own AC vents up here, and it's nice and cool. There are hooks up here, and I think those would become very useful for someone like me because I would like to hang clothes usually in my car in the back. So that's actually a nice thing right there. There's a pocket here for an iPad, kind of a slot, but all things considered, even with the headrest, it's actually quite nice here. The only thing I would really advise you guys is if you have some kind of back pain, you do not want to sit here in the back because getting in and out here, look at this. It's gonna be a challenge. You're gonna have to weave your way around there because this middle row does not fold and tumble. So yeah, keep that in mind. Now let's go drive it. I've actually been switching back and forth between the Titanium and this Sport model for a few days, and there's actually really nothing between them in terms of how they feel. Both are very comfortable vehicles. I mean, they're a bit firmer than they were before, but even then, it's actually all well and good, even on EDSA, even over these expansion joints and ruts and lubak all around, it's not really a problem. The way the vehicle also sits above the ground, it gives you a really commanding driving position. I mean, yeah, you do feel like you're towering over everything in the Ford Everest. I had actually been requesting to get the 4x2 models first because 4x2s really make up the bulk of the Everest and actually PPV sales in the Philippines. Yes, it's great to off-road with the 4x4 models, but truth be told, when it comes to the bulk of the sales, you look around you, most of the SUVs you'll see in this class are 4x2 because people use these as everyday vehicles, as basically the replacement for the mid-size sedan. I mean, instead of going for, let's say, a Camry or an Accord, you go for something like this, and it really just makes a lot of sense. You get more space, you get the feeling, the commanding driving position that we all like, you get the practicality and the versatility of 7 seats. That's why these are so popular in our market. Now, I did mention that the powertrain of this one is a 2-liter, but it's not the bi-turbo one. Now, it is a carryover from the previous generation, but it's been a bit detuned. But even then, it actually doesn't feel detuned to me. Throttle response is actually pretty good. The transmission is actually really good. It's actually overall a really good vehicle to drive around every day. That's going to be the key for something like this. It's supposed to feel just right. And honestly, the 10-speed auto, when you're downshifting or when you're slowing down, the transmission really tends to hunt for gears and it just feels weird. This one, it's just right. And like I mentioned, the ride, it's actually pretty good. Once traffic does open up, you can start to prod the throttle a bit more, like right now. See? The response is actually quite okay. Now, it's not as fast as a bi-turbo one, but considering that it's been detuned, it's actually all well and good. Now, some are going to say, oh, they made it underpowered because they lowered the torque and they lowered the power. But it doesn't really feel like that. It's still quite sprightly for such a big, heavy vehicle. And the torque is pretty much available all down low. And that's really what's important in these heavy vehicles. Now, for fuel economy, I was averaging around 9.9 kilometers per liter, average speed of 22 in this one. And for the highway driving, it's usually around 14.8. So don't be surprised if you're getting those numbers. But you may even get more depending on how you drive, because I prefer to drive relaxed and do a bit of overtaking. For both the Titanium and the Sport variant, Ford actually unchecked a lot of the safety features that you will find in the Titanium 4x4. Things like adaptive cruise control, the pre-collision braking, those kinds of advanced driver assist systems, you won't find in these two models, which actually makes them very similar. But what you will find here, you do have cruise control, the regular kind, and it is useful on the expressway. But all in all, I don't really use adaptive and smart driving features all that much. I prefer to, drive myself and not let the computer take over. Because that's what I've found. Because when you're driving around Metro Manila or actually anywhere in the Philippines, it can be a bit unpredictable. And what do I mean by that? Road markings suddenly disappear, motorcycles suddenly show up, that kind of thing. And really, an attentive driver is all you need for those kinds of situations. The problem with adaptive systems and smart systems is that they rely on certain stimuli. While a driver, if you have enough experience, you start to read the road. It's called roadcraft. So read the road and you kind of figure out how everything goes and what's going to happen next. A computer can't do that. But again, I digress. Overall, the Everest is a very good package. They really did improve on a lot of things. And of course, this one does come with the 7 airbags. So hopefully, you don't have to put it to the test. Now this is the part of the video where I try to pick between the two models. And to be honest with you, I'm not really gonna do that. Because what Ford did is very clever. They went for two distinct customers with the styling packages of both vehicles. They're essentially the same, and you can enjoy a lot of the improvements from one to the other and from the generation before to this one. But in this one, you get the more premium chrome styling, the premium features, and it is a bit more Tito. This one is a bit more baguettes with all the black details, which personally, I kind of like. Now, when it comes to prices, actually nothing really much between them. This is 2.179 million. This one is 2.089. So really not much between the two. In this one, you do get the sunroof and the slightly bigger audio system or touchscreen right there in the middle. Now, would I recommend the Everest? Well, the caveat here is that I think it's your experience may vary kind of thing, which is kind of unfortunate because a lot of people I recommended Everest and Rangers to, they have really good experiences, but some do have some really bad ones. It really depends. Some are experiencing reliability issues, electrical gremlins. I mean, one person I even know had a Christmas light incident with their vehicle. Christmas lights meaning all the lights on the dashboard lit up like there's no tomorrow. But hey, let us know in the comments below what you think of these vehicles. And if you're in the market for one of these, be sure to test drive it thoroughly and see if it's the right one for you. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya.com.